Hi, I'm Henry Chinsky. Family, friends, and most folks in the aviation community know me as Chick. Sending this video out to the aviation community, and we're going to put it on social media as well, out of some grave concerns of what we feel is something that's not right that's happening with the county executive, the task force, and DRBA. But before I do that, let me give you a brief history of myself and why I'm interested in this whole subject. Is that I started hanging out at the Newcastle County Airport, ILG, in the early 60s when I was a young kid. I learned to fly there in the 70s, flew through the 70s into the 80s, ended up owning the flight school there from about 95 to 2005. I had a private hangar at the West Tees. I'm also now the Newcastle County at-large representative on the Delaware Aviation Advisory Council, former 5-term president of DAISY, Delaware Aviation Support Incorporated, aka the Delaware Pilots Association. So I have a deep-seated history with this airport, and I don't want to see the wrong thing happen to it. And as you're going to see here in a moment, there's some conflicts that we think need to be addressed. Let me get into my first concern here, and that is when we started looking into some things I was hearing about, it gave me concern. So I started talking to folks at the county, and I found out that the county executive has unilateral decision making to either keep the agreement going or end the agreement with the DRBA. So I found that to be a little problematic in light of some of the other things I found out, which I'll get into here in a minute, because I believe there's a real conflict of interest going on here. So we'll talk a little bit more about the unilateral decision making. The second concern that I have is the task force that was created. From what I can tell, there's nobody really on that task force that has any connection to the airport. There might be one guy that flew out of there. There's an airline pilot that lives in Delaware but it's never flown in and out of there. There's an airline steward. Don't know where that comes into play here. There's a developer. There's a couple county people. So I don't see anybody on there that has a real interest in the task force. Now, we're in the Greater Wilmington Airport. But I do know this. I do know that sources at the county tell me that the decision has already been made before the task force has even wrapped up its investigation. They've hired a consultant to see what's going on. These sources have told me that the decision's been made, that the county executive wants to do away with the agreement between the county and the DRBA for probably a whole host of reasons. And conflict of interest is kind of comes down to these things. What we found out was that there's at least one developer, probably two, that have been pushing on the county executive to use some of the land that is controlled by the DRBA. Now, the airport is boxed in on three sides, and one side they have some room left for future expansion, where they might, if they needed to expand the ramps to park bigger aircraft or whatever the case might be in the future, or if they brought in more air carriers, they might actually have to build a new terminal building. So what we understand is there's been some push on the county executive to get that property back from the DRBA so that developers can develop it. And we all know how that plays out. That's not really to the benefit of anybody but the developers usually. So another issue that came down the pike with that one was, I found out in the interim, was there was a flight school here, ATP, out of Vero Beach, Florida. I talked to their president after they left. They abruptly just packed up and moved. They moved up to Boston. Reason being, now get this, the Department of Education shows up and tells them they need this license, that license, and this certification, and these $250,000 bond. So the more we looked at this, we find out This is kind of strange because one of the FBOs on the field, Fly Advance, who's very friendly with Mr. Meyer, the county executive, wanted to start a flight school operation there. And they couldn't do it because at the terminal building because of air carrier service and everything else that's going on there. So that's suspect. So now we got a developer involved. We got an FBO on the field involved that are pushing the county executive probably to break this agreement so that they can do what's in their interest. What they're trading off for that, who knows? But we all know one thing, the county executive's only here for a short time. He's going to do what every other politicians in Delaware do. He's going to move on to a different job. Congressman, senator, governor, who knows? But if you'd have to be stupid to know that's not what his plan is. So he's not going to be around long, so he has no vested interest in this airport. I hate to be blunt like that, but I'm sorry, I have to do it. So, given all those factors, the conflict of interest with the FBO, the developers, one of those developers I believe is on the task force, is problematic, and then the unilateral decision by the county executive is really problematic. So, what you also need to know is that since the DRBA has taken over this airport, they've made tremendous improvements to the airport. They've made it a great home for corporate aviation and have expanded that. You've seen all the big hangars out there. And notice that they've new control tower, new lighting, new paving, and pretty much redid the whole airport because prior to the DRBA taking over, it was a hole in the wall and it was just a red line on the county's budget. Hadn't made money in years, and the DRBA brought it back from the brink, and that has to be considered as well. So one thing you also need to know, and this is very important, so pay attention, if the county would do away with the agreement right now, the county would owe the DRBA $62 million in capital improvements. That's right. The county would owe the DRBA $62 million. And as it stands right now, there's a $900,000 baggage claim area to be done that's on hold. We know Frontier Airlines is back in there. They're going to be running like 3 flights a week out of there to Orlando. And they're committed to gradually looking at possibly expanding our market to other markets in a soft, systematic way to see what they can make work and help it to grow. So that property, we may need it. We can't turn it over to a developer. A developer needs to work with the DRBA to see what can be done on that property. Let me say this, that the agreement between the county and the DRBA should be continued. The county council, if there is any disagreement over this, the county council should be the one to decide under democratic rule, democratic process, not a unilateral decision by the county executive, who really has no interest, you can tell by the people he put on the task force. So again, this agreement should be continued, and it also, if there is a question, let the county council decide on it. Now, I urge everybody seeing this to contact your state legislators, your county council folks, the county executive, the governor, everybody else. And also for all you folks, because we're going to post this out on media too, social media. It's gone out by email to the aviation community, but we're going to put it on social media. If this bothers you and you think that this kind of unilateral thing and the possibility of corruption involved, get in touch with your folks as well, and let's save the Newcastle County Airport, ILG.